Hey guys, today we're going to talk about the 4021 reducer by Createx. That is their newest reducer. Of course, I have been using Createx and their products and reducers for a long time. You got the 4011, 4012, 4013, 4020, and they have different reducers that do different things. The 4021 is promising to have better leveling and smoothing of your paints, for your base coats and clear coats. And a lot of people are saying that there's pretty much no tip dry. I don't really believe in the claims of zero tip dry. I don't think that's an actual reality, but we're going to test some of that. And it's important to note, I have tested this with Tridents, Goldens, E-Tech EFX, E-Tech Private Stock, Chroma Air, the no-name paints, craft paints, tube paints, and pretty much everything that Createx has, from their illustrations to the Createx airbrush colors in Wickeds and the Wicked Opaques. Somebody needs to clean this up. And so far, I have not had an issue in compatibility across all those different paint lines. So I have loaded up some Wicked Payne's Gray, and we're going to run that through my PS289 airbrush. We're going to run that for a while, run some lines, and we'll do this pretty much in fast, and then we'll examine the tip and see how, as I continue to paint, as how much paint starts to build up on the tip when we do a significant amount of painting. I'm not doing any art right now, and again, I'm not going to try to get in here and show you the smallest lines that I can get, because that has all been done before. You guys have seen me paint some really tiny lines even before this producer came out, so really it's not going to show you anything. But I did want to point out how little tip dry after a significant amount of painting. My next experiment, what we're going to test flow out. And so what I have done is I mixed exactly 18 milliliters of UVLS high gloss, which is a pretty thick paint, into each one of these bottles, and I mixed it with exactly 2 milliliters of deionized water, 4011 reducer, and 4021 reducer, using these syringes so that I can make sure it was exactly 10% reducer. And what I'm going to do with this next test, we're going to spray these out in a large droplet. So in other words, I'm going to have the pressure turned down, and I'm going to spray a couple of spoons, and with the droplets of too large of a size, really, that's not considered good painting technique, but I want to see how much each one of those levels and compare the difference in them. All right, so some people are going to ask, since I have 4012 here, why did it compare with the 4012? Well, because it is time to bury it. It is time to put it in its final resting place. She has been a loyal and faithful servant throughout its time, but rest in peace. All things come to an end. She's done, guys. As they would say in Star Trek, she's dead, Jim. Okay, so I'm going to pop up on screen what they look like with a photo that I took of these afterwards, and it is extraordinarily clear that while none of these are perfect, it is very clear that left to right is water, 4011 and 4021, and that the 4021 significantly flowed out better than the 4011, and the 4011 significantly flowed out better than deionized water. Now, I have another test that I'm going to run from there, and that we're going to over-atomize the paint, and with the over-atomization, we're going to see how well it does to prevent that little powdered dust that you get. If you use a small airbrush nozzle and you back up and you're spraying really light and you got your pressure cranked up, it can create little dried bits of paint in there, and that creates a little powder, and that's where you get that kind of sandpaperish texture in your clear coats and sometimes your base coats as well. And so I want to see how much of a difference we make with that. Okay, we're going to start out with water. We're going to have 10% reduction, which is exactly the same mix that I was using before. And we've got the pressure cranked up to 45 PSI, trying to get this to flow out. And it's pretty obvious that it's struggling to move through a 0.3 airbrush with a 10% reduction with the water. And it isn't going to work out real well for us. We're going to move over. We're going to use the same pressure, same reduction for all three trials, and the 4011 is going to flow out just a little bit better in the water, but it still is struggling. We're getting some of that little dried paint on there, and you know, I'm going to try to hammer it on there. I'm trying to get it to flow out, so I'm trying to push, you know, as much paint on there as I can to get it to flow out, which would help it level out and gloss up, but it's not looking like it's going to handle at that 10% reduction very well, because it's, you know, over atomized. It should be very, very evident when I put the 4021 in there how much smoother that flows out of the brush. It works way, way better, comes out of the brush, so the paint does in fact flow smoother. We can of course expect a much better outcome. Okay, so I have my 3 spoons that I painted, and you know, that doesn't really look that bad. That's the water. But let's put it up there. See, we're gonna look through that and look at that lettering. So as you can see, clearly we got a lot of cloudy in there. I mean, as a clear coat, this would have probably came out all right, but you know, that dry spray significantly affects it. That's the reason I put this on, you know, a clear spoon, so you could see the dramatic difference. Same thing here. As you can tell, 4011 is better. It flowed out better. It gets a little bit clearer look through it than the water. A little less patchy too. The water had a couple little patchy spots in it. But then you go to this, it's like putting on a dirty pair of glasses versus a clean pair of glasses. This is the 4021, and if it wasn't for, say, that little spot right there, you can see on the edge where I didn't quite get enough coverage there, you would think that I hadn't painted that spoon. If it wasn't for that little spot there, it would be extraordinarily hard to tell. There's one little dust dip in there. There's, you know, that one little spot right there. And that, you know, without even trying to dial it in. Now, again, as I've mentioned, you know, people are going to say, well, that's not a fair test, you know, because, you know, you could always add more reducer, you know, and you could add more water to get it to level out. Well, I understand that, and I understand how to make paint flow better, but at the end of the day, that's not a control unless I use the exact same things. I want to see if it's better in a specific, taking all other things out of the factors as much as I can. I can't, of course, you know, and my hand is, you know, I'm trying to do this exactly the same. I got one more test after this to go into that should help us, but that is just, that's absolutely fantastic. Of course, the high gloss is just a great product anyway. But yeah, it flowed out incredibly well, even in non-ideal circumstances. Okay, guys, so what I got here is I got 4021 here and 4011 right here, and I got a speed shape that I've been doing some testing with. And so we've got some clear coat on there that's, you know, not the great looking clear coat, but it's from some testing. It actually was for this video, but I decided not to let it run that long. So I'm going to, well, actually, let's do this the other way. I am going to take this 4011 and we're going to put it on this speed shape here. And then I'm going to take the 4021 and we're going to put it on the speed shape right there. And what I want to see is how well the 4021 burns into the 4011. I already know the answer to this because I've run this test a couple times, but I want you guys to see it. So as you can tell, I've had the 4011 on there for significantly longer than the 4021. So we're going to wipe the 4011 off. As you can see, it starts to mar the surface just a little bit. But even though I'm rubbing on that, that's not quite coming off. 4021. You can see the difference in how much the 4021 was working in there. We're going to run that test again because I didn't do a really good job at running that test. Let's try this spot over here. 4011. 4011 is going to sit there. We're going to let that 4011 sit there a lot longer than the 4021. Now we're going to wipe the 4121 down. As you can see, it's pulling that clear coat off, pulling it all the way back to the speed shape. Now, the 4011 is starting to dry, so we're going to go ahead and wipe it down. And as you can see, that does not eat through the paint. So what that tells me is that the 4021 can reactivate the paint underneath. In other words, it can burn into the previous layer of paint. It will also help it break down. Heck, I can still pull the 4021 because it stays kind of wet for longer, open. So it will also break down those small, tiny amounts of paint better. All right, guys, so everything that I've done here is for me not to be able to just come into a video and be like, hey, it's better. And here, watch me paint, see how good I can paint. Everything I've done is to show the properties of the reducer, not to give my opinion on whether the reducer is better. It does some things better, not just arguably better, but we can prove that it does certain things better in this video. Anyway, guys, that is what I have to say about the new reducer from Createx. I'll leave you a link where you can pick this up if you're interested in it. Let me know what you guys think, and have you been testing this? Have you played with it? And yeah, or are you going to? Anyway, guys, I'm Bill Kennedy with the Airspace. I appreciate you for coming by. I know this has got rather long. Believe me, I've been working on this for hours. You'd be surprised how long it takes to make a 15-minute or less video. Anyway, that's going to be a wrap for today. We appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good one. Bye.